everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the CypherCast. With me today, well, my name is Andrew Cady, your host today. With me is my co-host, Jim Ryan.
Greetings, one and all.
And our guest today, AlphaDean. How you doing, Dean?
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Welcome back to the CypherCast. I think this is your third appearance. Second on the, okay, my bad.
You were here for that one episode that I wasn't here. We figured it out before we started.
It was like, I've never done anything with Dean. I'm like, yeah, he's been on the show before. Oh, it's the one episode that Jim wasn't here.
During the hiatus.
We are unfortunately missing our illustrious other co-host, Danny Neary. She somehow escaped into the actuality, though we have a scheme to steal her back into the shadow for next month. So...
We are tricksy shadow creatures.
Yes. Today we have a wonderful show to you. We are going to do a great deep dive into one of the CypherCast genres, or the Cypher System genres of fantasy. CypherCast genres. Ooh, we have our own genres. We're a comedy show.
This is all my fault for naming the show something very close to the name of the system.
Absolutely.
Can't wait for that musical episode.
We were just talking about that, seriously.
But no, we're going to go and do a deep dive into what makes Cypher Fantasy tick. And we hope to, in future episodes, deal with, Cypher horror, Cypher superheroes, Cypher modern, and what other wonderful genres they give us in the new CypherCast rulebook. But first, let's go to what's recent happenings. What else has been going on?
Well, we've got New Game Master Month, which as of this episode starts in a few days. Starts on January 8th, and I'm so glad they started doing this. Mm-hmm. And they just give folks just sort of tools to start GMing, and they get together with other companies. And it looks like the focus is going to be Numenera, Unknown Armies, Trail of Cthulhu, and RuneQuest.
And just so everybody knows, Cypher Unlimited Discord and Cypher Unlimited in general is going to participate in New Game Master Month as well. We actually have a channel set up already for New Game Masters. We're going to be able to try to get you people together and even help you with setting up games if you want to do something mobile, or via the internet, however you want to do it. So we're all excited about that as well. There's a lot of great experienced GMs on the Cypher Unlimited Discord. So if you are a new GM and want some help, reach out. I'll happy jump on a voice channel with somebody and sort of help them prep through their first game. To sort of give them tips, have them answer questions for them, that kind of thing. It's a great tool. Yeah. So.
And it looks like they've got the New Game Master Month Facebook group, and you can also follow at New GM Month over on Twitter, and they've got the New GM Month hashtag over there too. So if you want to go and sort of get in on it, definitely at least also look at if you're into Discord, look at the Cypher Unlimited Discord, because I cannot stress enough, I think how awesome that Discord has been for the community. Seriously.
Well, we're very, very appreciative of all of our members. We just went over 1,600 in just over a year. We went from 1,600 members. It's pretty beefy over there. We also have a Cypher Unlimited YouTube channel, just so you guys know, and we do videos there that discuss various things. And we're even doing our GM Roulette. There's 2 episodes of GM Roulette, and I'll talk about that too.
Yay!
Cool. All right. Other than that, I guess we'll move on to the discussion. We're kind of, with the holidays coming on, kind of late around news, everybody has been, feasting and partying and hanging out with family and friends and hopefully playing games. So did anybody get any gaming done over the holidays? Of the tabletop RPG variety. I think I've got computer gaming I've done, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I got a bit in. Matter of fact, as I was just saying, just started in a real life tabletop group with my son and a couple other close friends of the family. And we're playing a modern fantasy, which is pretty cool.
Cool.
I have a game actually that we'll be playing tonight on Discord. After I get done with this, so my gaming is up and rolling like it's supposed to be.
Awesome.
And I got some games coming up for you guys too, and I got some other stuff to talk about.
Cool. Yeah. As far as holiday gaming goes, yeah. Since I entered the Twitch arena, it seems my gaming has increased exponentially, which that was part of all part of the evil plan. But no, I ran a Christmas version of My Life with Master a couple of days before Christmas. My Life with Master basically being normally based on the trope of the old sort of Universal horror films where you're playing an Igor-like character, serving it's either like a mad scientist or a vampire or something like that. But in this case, I just used those rules, and the master was Santa Claus, and everyone was either elves or earth spirits or things of that nature, and it was hysterical.
That sounds awesome. Hilarious.
So we did that, and
I caught a little bit of I think a horror western you were doing.
Yes, that was a surprise actually, because as I have my regular one-shots that I do like weekly on Sundays with a lot of different systems, and one of the players in that had talked about running a Western pulp Cthulhu game that we were all very excited and interested in, but there hadn't been word as to whether or not it was going to be possible to make it happen. And so I just chatted with her about it a little bit after we finished the one shot that we had been playing that I had been running, and she said, "Well, I don't know if you'd like to host it on your channel, we could do that." I was like, "Yes, we'll do that. I can totally get up and do early in the morning and set this up. It'll be fine." On New Year's Day,
that's what I caught it. I was like, "Oh!"
But then it happened, and it was awesome. I had such a great time with it. So that's what we did so for New Year's, I was basically playing a miner who was a thinly veiled version of Walter Houston from Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Nice.
And it was delightful. I got to go crazy real fast.
Yeah, it looked to be a bit, all right, that's a bit horrific. Yeah.
And I was told I was trending more toward Gabby Hayes, apparently, but, these things happen. So,
Oh, yeah, and I forgot, too, on Christmas Day, we actually had to save the North Pole because an evil scientist decided to shift it into another reality.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
The evil scientist just happened to be Santa Claus's brother. His less known brother, Saint Rick.
Those fraternal rivalries just never end.
Yeah, Ricky just wasn't happy about anything.
That's unfortunate.
I was at a friend's house. We were playing some board games on Christmas Eve, but then we showed my son the NORAD Santa tracker, and he got real upset. We had to get home quick because Santa was already in Brazil, which is the same time zones, line up as us. So we got to get home so you can get in bed. Otherwise, Santa wasn't going to come, so we had to hurry up and all right, time to go. Call it a night.
That was good.
We got to be home for Santa. So it was pretty fun. So, but he still the joy and wonder in his eyes and things is still a lot of fun. So,
absolutely.
All right. Are we ready to delve into Cypher System Fantasy?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
All right. So the first thing I will talk about is, hey, what have you played in Cypher Fantasy? A lot of Cypher Fantasy to me has been a lot of reskinning of existing fantasy worlds and say, hey, I don't want to have to deal with THACO. I don't want to deal with the horrible 4E rules. So let's go play Dark Sun in Cypher. or let's go, or I don't have all the crazy dice for the new Warhammer system, so let's go play Warhammer Cypher. So I haven't done any much of let's play my own half-baked world of fantasy yet. But what have y'all done?
Well, of course, we've done Dark Sun. We actually did that on the Discord server, which we ran it as instead of a one-shot, it was a two-shot. And it was two different GMs, myself and another one of our admins, Steven. And we ran it as a part 1 and part 2, and that went off like a bang. We played the wild magic or wild talents. We played them as Cyphers, and on 10-hour recoveries, they would switch out, they would roll out. So that was one of the cool things about it. I've also played, of course, like you said, the reskinning of existing games, but just what was it, September? Yeah, September we had a convention here, a local convention, and I ran my own complete fantasy realm, and I didn't limit it to the constrictions of typical European style fantasy. There were, this was an amalgamated world. And I actually took a page from Monty Cook and had like a major mega city like Tolis. I don't know if you guys remember Tolis.
Oh yeah.
But I played Tolis Cypher actually.
So basically that was the concept that I used, was this massive city that would take, like 25 days, 30 days to literally traipse from one side to the other. But this world was filled with, you could have been a samurai, you could be an Arabian Night, whatever struck your fancy. And it was actually a pretty awesome run. They were fighting frost giants and stone giants, which were, I'd throw those in there. But in that particular game, I had made pre-gens, and that was the most requested Cypher game that I ran at that convention. On a 3-day convention, I ended up running that particular adventure 6 times.
Wow, that's a lot.
Oh yeah, well, I ran Cypher System. I actually ran 18 Cypher games over the weekend, over that 3-day weekend.
That's many.
Yeah, that's a lot. A lot of Cypher, but
yeah, it was fun.
Great. Cool, awesome. So what about you, Jim?
Most of the fantasy Cypher stuff that I've played has been at conventions. I have in mind, there are a couple that, in particular, I remember that one was a kind of a take on Dresden Files type stuff. It was urban fantasy. We were all different kinds of beings or had different relationships with the supernatural. That was a lot of fun. I think I was playing an illusionist of some kind, of someone who was into mysticism, and I remember having a cipher that I was able to throw down and create like all these mirror images of myself to confuse people, and it was a lot of fun. So we had like little personal trinkets, very personalized, sort of individual items type stuff is sort of what we did with the ciphers in that game. And then I remember playing a more traditional fantasy sort of setting, but I was something kind of akin to an ice demon type creature who got... it was funny because there was also a little bit of time warping going on, so I ended up getting left in this labyrinth for a couple of years while they went around the corner to find me. And so they came back, and I'd made all these little ice sculptures, and I had this little lean-to that I'd created. I had a long beard.
Nice.
It was hysterical.
I was in a pretty long campaign, long for nowadays, where it's like long as like 8 or 9 sessions of Gods of the Fall. That's definitely Cypher Fantasy in that regards, by Bruce Cordell. So that was a lot of fun playing, trying to explore that world and deal with the Fallen Pantheon and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. I did a couple one shots, a reoccurring one shot where I ran Warhammer Fantasy at one Gen Con for my friends that I used to play Warhammer with. So I was like, all right, let's do Warhammer Cypher. And they liked it enough that next Gen Con I did it again, just a different adventure kind of thing, same characters. So that's pretty cool. So sort of like now sort of the reoccurring, off the table game for us is to play some Warhammer Cypher. So because it's really easy to build, hey, you're the witch hunter, hey, you're the dwarf slayer, hey, you're the the priest of Sigmar and the fire mage. It's basically the first time I did it was actually a reskin of Warhammer Vermintide. It's like, all right, we're gonna do Vermintide. Here's the classes, here you go. But they really enjoyed it. They had a kick out of it. So we would do it again. So it worked really well.
And as far as that goes too, we're talking about modern fantasy. Of course, I was just telling the guys before we started, the first of the year, I just started a campaign in real life with a group. We've got a chosen one
at the table. Like, your online games are still in real life.
Yes.
Wait, this is real life?
Yeah.
This is virtual.
Yes.
Even though you're all there,
Okay, I got you. Virtual game versus okay. I see.
So, but at the table, and our group consists of a chosen one, a lycanthrope, and a seer. And of course, the story opens up with the impending prophecy. So, one of those type things, which is seems to be working out pretty well. And also tonight I'm playing in one of the guys on the Discord server. He's actually creating his own setting called Pantheon. And it's actually pretty awesome because it's basically sci-fi fantasy. It's far-flung future, but the gods have come back and all the players are avatars of gods.
Nice.
So instead of being a fallen god or whatever, you're an avatar of your said god. And right now we're playing Norse and Greek avatars. My character is Azuzu, who is a avatar of Odin. Pretty cool character.
Okay.
Awesome.
Neat. Well, how are you handling the? You said you're mixing in sci-fi elements in that. Is that right?
Yes.
How's
Yes.
that? Can you talk a little bit more about how that's being handled? How you're doing that?
Well, the setting itself is far-flung future. So the rise of the gods. So what they're doing, what it is that the gods are influencing, of course, humanity and worshipers and so forth. But we're using scientific elements to explain things like the Bifrost. The Bifrost is a quantum tunnel.
Gotcha.
Or a Heisenberg bridge. They're instead of faster than light travel and stuff like that. Most things are done through, I guess you can say making deals to use the Bifrost and stuff like this. Each god, is being developed in their own way. Zeus, of course, his arrogance, they are the best of what they might be. Hades has always got a scheme going on to overthrow somebody.
Sounds like it's got a little bit of American Gods flavor to it. So.
Yeah, a little bit of American Gods flavor, but and what Steven did. I'm giving you a shout out, Steven. This is going to be big. When we finally get it going. He kind of reskinned the whole concept, of the character types.
Gotcha.
So there are savants. Savants are relatively something, I guess you would say, kind of newish, because they're the ones who build things. They're the builders. So they build the heavy guns and the cannons and the starships and the all the devices. They even kind of build ciphers. So if you want to kind of look at that as them being kind of like a form of a right, that's what they would be.
Yeah.
Vanguards, of course, are your warrior types. But then we have the Inquisitor, who's kind of like the he's kind of like a combination between an explorer and a speaker.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But they literally they do the job of an inquisitor. Oh, you're a heretic. You're talking bad about God. You know, and they're scary. They're the scary ones. Come and smack you in the back of the head. So it's really cool. We're developing it. We're playing actually. Where he wants to run it as an arc, and kind of like we're going to play like 6 sessions and actually tier up each session just to play with the abilities and powers to see just how grandiose it can become.
Cool. I love that. I hope that you've been talking about that on the Discord and whatnot.
Oh yeah, we talk about everything. Just hop in, and if you're interested, Steven will be more than happy to talk to you. If we would like to try to get like characters. Sometimes some people can't make it to a session, so if you want to be a fill-in, those are all possibilities.
I just want to hear more about how this how things end up on that, because it sounds like a very interesting idea.
Yeah.
Well, like to give you just a concept, like my character is a construct. He's not even a human. There was a device that was being created like 5,000 years ago called the Eye of Odin on this planet, and it was a super quantum computer. Well, it was being built next to a star that was a singularity. The singularity pulsed and killed all life in that particular solar system. 5,000 years later, a savant goes to the planet and activates his device. There's a pulse of quantum energy, and my character actually is formed from the computations. That it's a whole crazy backstory.
Gotcha.
But he's
getting very sci-fi in your fantasy here.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. So we got those elements, but then the fantasy elements are the representations. Like our starship is actually called Sleipnir, like Odin's horse.
Gotcha.
And it's a creature who can. Well, it's a ship that's alive that can actually quantum tunnel itself. Which is something most people can't do. So we have like this kind of crazy advantage, but there's disadvantages because the ship has a will of its own. So we get those fantasy elements. It's a lot of good, great stuff going on.
I love that. That's awesome.
Gotcha. All right. So are you playing it? So it sounds more like a high fantasy sort of game where larger than life characters fighting. Like what's it like a protagonist, or an antagonist is usually in big high fantasy games a big large thing, rather than like in a low fantasy game you have, you're fighting skeletons, you're fighting smaller scale things as you try to survive. It's more of a survival aspect of things like that. And what should y'all prefer to play when you do things like, a lot of smaller tier stuff that I do is usually, it's very low fantasy. It's the stories are more personal, but they're less epic. Because I usually, are doing small arcs. You sounds like you're doing a small arc, but you sort of got a very grandiose kind of setup.
Well, I like them both. It just depends on what kind of story I'm trying to tell. Mm-hmm. I think the smaller scale, the low fantasy has a tendency to be gritty and dangerous. Mm-hmm. And I think those stories have a specific place, but I think the high fantasy, the epic hero is always a cool thing too, because everybody wants to be Aragorn. Everybody wants to be that dude. And my biggest thing is I think that's something that I really dig about creating my own fantasy as opposed to playing within the confines of someone else's creation. Is that my players get to be that. They get to be the stuff of legends.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times that's what I do. If I know I'm going to run something epic, the player characters normally end up becoming iconic figures in history. And I've done stuff like that where
that's always the problem with borrowing from other worlds, is the fact that, all right, you're going to play Dragonlance in any setting, Cypher or D&D. It's sort of like, yeah, but everybody knows the War of the Lance and who the big players were. Your characters weren't there. Playing Dark Sun, well, we know how Tyr falls. We didn't read about your character either. So, or Sci-Fi, the same problem of doing Star Wars or stuff like that, where you're like, all right, well,
you're not a Skywalker.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the cool thing about having your own world and doing your own thing, is you get to, like, all right, you get to create the heroes.
Skywalker, Elminster, Frodo problem.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's my biggest thing. I guess, I feel I'm a pretty creative person.
Mm-hmm.
These things inspire me. It's a lot of the reason why 99% of the time I'm behind the screen, as opposed to in the other seat as a player, because 15 minutes into being a player, my creative juices are going, ooh, me. I enjoy both aspects. Don't get me wrong. I truly enjoy being a player, and but I also truly enjoy, the creative part. And I think that's something that, I told you guys I wanted to touch on slightly, was also GM Roulette. Okay. That's something we created at Gen Con this past year. And it's basically improvisational gaming, improvisational GMing. Every GM gets 30 minutes to continue the story. It's a pretty cool thing. And we actually did a fairy tale. We did a fairy tale fantasy game on the Humbug. It's on YouTube, people. So check out Cypher Unlimited YouTube, GM Roulette #1. It was a lot of fun, and it allows, for that creativity. And we've done it twice. The rules are coming. We're going to actually put the rules out up on drive-through. It's going to come as a complete set. It's going to give you all the pre-gens. It's going to give you the rules. It's going to give you the breakdowns. But something to look forward to, people.
Oh man, I gotta look at that when that comes out.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I just want to say, I have the same problem. When my brain won't shut off when I'm sitting doing character stuff, which is probably why I also end up running a lot of games. But I totally get that. I will say, as far as high or low fantasy goes, I like both, but I kind of, one thing that does sometimes it sometimes rubs me the wrong way, sometimes I just don't quite get into, is when you have a game that turns from one into the other, which is a thing that I have seen happen. In certain popular RPGs that contain level advancement. Sometimes some campaigns, it's like it goes from street level to epic. It basically becomes almost wuxia by the time you get up to certain levels. And I understand that. I see the value in that, and I like the idea of that kind of progression, but it feels, when it gets to the point where the way you're handling it is to sort of shift genres, I kind of, it feels very sort of tacked on to me, basically. It's you're changing the genre as an excuse to continue playing, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that necessarily if that's how the folks at that table have fun, but it's just it kind of messes up the arcs for me a little bit, sort of how the character arcs would go, sort of in the way that I try to handle it. So.
High fantasy has a big problem for me in some regards of when you have these level-based games where you don't start off as, hey, I'm actually an expert in my field. I like games where you start off an expert in the field, and that's great for a high fantasy setting, but like a lot of high fantasy games are like, all right, you're going to hire these lowly level 1 nobodies for this important job, like this earth-shaking thing, and they're going to level up throughout the entire, adventure and become cool and powerful and what have you. But it's like, why did you hire them in the first place? Why didn't you go get, it's like, it's like the Marvel movie system. Why didn't we call the Avengers? You know, it's like, why didn't you call the people that could actually deal with this and not these nobodies? You know.
Well, that's kind of, and see, that's something that for me as a writer and creative person that I try to deal with. I don't hire low level people to do anything. 90% of the time, the way it works for me is that the low level people who are going to level up through something, they're the people who just get caught in the midst of it. They have no choice. You know, it's either that or die. You know, so, you know, they might have some talents, they might have some abilities. And then, you know, also, you know, if you're going to do it right, for me, you know, 90% of the time I like to build the world from that aspect. From these are the people who are like the first timers. That's why they become the Avengers, or however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
When I do something that on an epic level, I have a tendency to have people build those characters, you know, the way they see them at the end of their journey almost. And there's not even necessarily a need to level up. We can play within that and just tell more grand stories.
Gotcha.
As opposed to, you know, okay, we're gonna level up. You know, I've actually had ran a Cypher game where it was a Gods of the Fall game, and it ran about 3.5 months. It ran about 12 sessions over a course of 3.5, 4 months. But I had everybody start their character out at 4th tier, at tier 4. And what I told them to do is, I need you to write me a backstory. And that backstory that they all wrote, that each character wrote, the 4 characters, the 4 players, became the canon and the history of their journey. And I was able to weave that and build a story out of that, you know, as opposed to, you know, and they never went to tier 5 or 6 or anything like that, you know, because the whole idea was to basically, you know, it was a kind of the concept of building an island that was going to be risen into the heavens to become the start of the new heaven, you know, type idea.
Yeah. I think it's
always
cool.
like,
Sorry, go ahead.
The idea of like, all right, you wrote your big history for your pantheon, your god or what have you. But you know, with Gods of the Fall, you sort of pick your hey, this is what I'm the god of kind of thing.
Right.
But I always like your subjects are decide what you're the god of, you know.
Right.
Oh, you're the god of, you're the god of truth and justice. Oh, but you're also like, you're kind of the god of vengeance and cruelty, you know, as well. Sort of like, is based on how you act, you know, how they worship you kind of thing.
Right. And that I actually played that aspect into it, because, you know, the one guy was like, well, I want to be the god of the winds. Well, he ended up, you were the gods of winds, but you didn't realize you were the god of winds of change. Because, you know what I'm saying? So I was able to add those things into it. That excites me. That stuff gets me really excited when, you know, players give me stuff, but then I get to manipulate it or just, you know, add to it or something. That makes me feel good.
Well, I want to switch gears and talk about something that's kind of becoming a big issue with RPGs right now, especially fantasy RPGs, and that is the aspect of racial descriptors or racial bonuses, or in that like that of fantasy creatures. You know, if you want to play a dwarf or an elf or a goblin or an orc or what have you into the game, with Cypher, they have a descriptor setting for it, and you know, the descriptor dwarf sort of takes over charming or mischievous or whatever descriptor else you put in there. I'm not sure that I'm okay with that. I always like that sort of role-playing sort of, you know, steering that the descriptors give you of charming or of, you know, heroic. Dwarf is not really, to me, a role-playing descriptor. It's just, I'm a dwarf. So I'm not sure that I like that they do that in the Cypher rulebook, and I'm not sure that they're going to handle that the same way in the revised edition.
If you look at the Cypher rulebook, it also tells you that you, as the game master, are allowed to add that additional descriptor, add it as an additional, not in place of. And that's what I do. I don't take away anything, and I don't have a problem with the character having another descriptor that's going to give them a couple of more points here or there at tier 1, because again, you're the heroes. That's the one thing I love about Cypher System in the first place. It's not like, a first level character in D&D, with, even a fighter. If you're a first level fighter in D&D, you 10 hit points plus your Constitution modifier. Let's say you're lucky and got a 15, so that's 12 hit points, right? Whoop-de-doo. Anything can critical hit you in D&D, you're done. And you have to grow into this role. Whereas a tier 1 character in Cypher System is viable, is functional, in a lot of respects, I mean, if it's okay for me to say it, they're kick ass, I mean, they are. So another descriptor, Gimli is a relentless dwarven warrior, who masters weaponry.
Yeah.
I don't see a big deal.
Yeah, I got you.
And that's how I handle it. If we're going to do fantasy, of course a dwarf should have, a couple of points of might. I'll give a elf a couple more points of speed. Yeah. It's not breaking the game.
And I don't mind that aspect. Like, I don't mind having a dwarf, an elf, a gnome, or what have you, have special characteristics that make them different from a human. I don't mind that at all. I think that sort of adds a good flavor to, hey, this is what makes this race sort of different.
And I think Cypher also is built to handle that better than other games, because if you even look at it, Cypher, you can take a tier 1 character and put him in a group of tier 4 characters, and he's still functional. He still can operate. He's not as good as those guys, but he's not, let's make sure you just stand over there and collect experience points. You can actually get in on the action. And so I don't see, I like those aspects, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but Gonza Gaming did a great supplement for Cypher System called Mortal Fantasy. And literally, he basically adapted. It's almost like he adapted the player's handbook as a tool for Cypher System. So you have all the races in there. You have, you have the rules. He did it when Gods of the Fall came out, but it's literally being able to take D&D, being able to play regular people, regular characters, and not necessarily have to worry about being a divine character in Cypher. It's a great supplement. It's on Drive Through RPG. If you haven't, and you guys are looking towards, out there looking towards doing something, pick it up. It is awesome. He's got a lot of good stuff out there.
Cool. Something else that actually I wanted to mention, aside from the, well, first off, let me go ahead and just say, as far as races as descriptors, I feel like there should be as many different kinds of dwarves and elves as there are humans. If you're a sapient life form on a planet, and you're not like the only one of your kind or anything like that, you have it just makes sense. They're all people. So
sorry, all dwarves have to take the stubborn one. Sorry, that's the only. It's got to be a stubborn dwarf. That's how it is. Sorry.
Oh, and so that's the thing is, they can have.
I agree. I want to be that jolly dwarf. I want to be.
They've got to have all different cultures all over the place.
But you know what, Jim? You just said a mouthful. Yeah. And that, again, we're talking about Cypher. This is a CypherCast, stream that we're doing here. I can't sing the praises of this system enough, because it encourages just what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? If you're building your own fantasy world, and that's the whole point, build it. You know what? You want hill dwarves, you want mountain dwarves, you want sea dwarves. Who cares? Build them into your system and do it. The modular nature of Cypher, plug it in, unplug it.
Absolutely. And something actually is I also just wanted to recommend briefly, as we were talking about this. Another thing that's out on DriveThruRPG is Fantasy Ancestries. We had Megan Tolentino on the show not too long ago, and it was for Women in Gaming Month. Oh, yeah. And she talked about it. And I picked it up and I took a look at it, and I think it provides some very interesting alternatives to how you can do different races in Cypher. A lot of different ways you sort of delve into things that give them bonuses that aren't, or even just different story paths, essentially, that aren't dependent on just like making it a descriptor. And so that's something else I heartily encourage folks to check out if they want to look at a different way of doing things.
Nice. And if we're going to talk about stuff like that, just stuff to add to Cypher, I know we're talking about fantasy, but I have a superhero supplement out there, which is great.
You gotta wait to the superhero show, Dean. Sorry.
Okay. But I do have a supplement coming up this year, flavors, and I'm actually I built a noir. Ooh. So you can do noir and fantasy stuff like that for modern fantasy, and also there's going to be a wuxia section in that one to build. Cool. So you can have, and that way you can, and the way I have it set up too is you can play, like the old Shaw Brothers movies, where they're talking about, try my Shadow Eagle Claw, to the modern stuff like Raid the Redemption, So, because this is, once again, this is because it's Cypher.
Yeah.
I get my juices go off they start overflowing, and I gotta put it on paper.
Oh yeah, well that's awesome, and I'd love to see wuxia's supplement for Cypher, just because I like wuxia as well. It's I know I mentioned it earlier as in what seemed like perhaps a bit of disdain, but that was only if you transition from something that's not wuxia into wuxia. If you start with wuxia, you're golden. I'm totally on board with that. So I'm very much then looking forward to that.
All right, well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk more of so one of the more hard parts about transitioning Cypher System is figuring out how to use ciphers in a setting. Fantasy is probably one of the easier ones because it does kind of have your potions, your scrolls, your deck of many things kind of thing. You've got sort of like these one-off sort of things that are typically sort of in items. Your Light of Elendria, it might have been a triple use thing. It was only ever used once, so who knows? So, but yeah, you've got these one-off but. What have y'all typically done with ciphers in a fantasy setting?
Well, like for modern fantasy, because how it is. It's a modern fantasy, so you don't necessarily always have the potions and all of that, readily available. There's no apothecary to go to, so a lot of times.
What do you mean? You're not playing the same apothecary. There's always that weird shop in the corner that's selling weird stuff.
Oh yeah, there's always that place, but what I've actually come up with, I like to use them as subtle ciphers or inspirations. I've built ciphers. As a matter of fact, the modern fantasy that I'm running, the chosen one has tattoos that are his ciphers. The seer, she uses, she finds these trinkets, these crystals, and she sees in the crystal something, so for me, ciphers are not hard to, adapt or bring around into something else or as something else other than the typical one-offs. I just try to be creative. Like I said, that intestinal fortitude. That I actually have a cipher that is literally that. It's that one shot use. How it is in the movie. The villain is winning. He's beating the hero down. And then he says the wrong thing, and the hero's like, "You made a mistake." And now I'm ready. I got this surge of might. Whatever. So, I mean, I've done things like that.
Cool. What about you, John?
Mostly in the Cypher Fantasy stuff that I've played. What I've noticed when it's the high fantasy, that a lot of ciphers, when we receive them, will be things like potions or one-use trinkets. You break the thing to make it work. Something where the magic is bound up in it and it will be expended if you use it. You have to destroy the thing in order to make it work.
Gotcha.
Was usually how that would go. And I know for that even in the core rules they have the idea of, even for like artifacts, things like that, they have depletion rules where you have a certain number of charges, and then after that it might not be usable. I believe it's actually just based on a die roll.
Right.
Yeah, it's roll one on a d6 and it depletes.
I was reading an article, and that's what I think it was written by Monty, and he was just saying that he hates bookkeeping, and that's why there are no charges on anything. It's a depletion roll. If you roll a 1, 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, whatever it might be, yep, it doesn't work. You got to go find a way to charge it up now. So you don't have to worry about, did he use like 5 charges last week, or
That's a nice way around it.
I've seen things like it recharges in the moonlight, rather than it's a one-off item and it recharges in the moonlight. So all right, you used it and you're in a dungeon, so sorry, you can't use it again until you get back outside, or oh gosh, there's no moon tonight because it's storming outside. And
exactly.
It. So that's a cool sort of a more of a not an arbitrary roll kind of thing, but that's the one thing that I always thought, it's like, why does it break this time? Kind of the die roll is kind of finicky to me, because I've seen it happen where the device never goes away, and I've seen it happen where the device goes away after the first use.
Right.
So it's sort of like, we thought this was going to be a big artifact, and no, okay, never mind. So
in one of the books, I think it's the Impossible Things, the book for the strange. They actually go over stuff like that, because they have Excalibur in there, and they have, like Gauntlets of Ogre Power, or a version of it where they do deplete, but there are ways for them to be recharged. So that's all. It is very much a real thing too.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a fantasy world where there's a certain aspect of the world that's magical, like the moonlight was like, because the moon's supposed to be the source of magical power, and that's why it recharges in the moonlight. But there, you could just sort of come up with, where's the source of magic in your world, and sort of that's what recharges it, kind of thing.
Right.
It's the light of a fire, or it could be something else. Burning a certain candle and incense. Maybe there's a magical scent. Or with what was it, the feathers or what have you. So, that kind of thing. You can do a bunch of different ideas for depletion rules that aren't just rolling the die, or you can just do the roll the die. My problem is that I've had it where the first artifact they lost it on their first use, and then every artifact they got after that they didn't ever want to use. They were so like, oh, let's not pull this one out. We want to keep it.
Right.
And that's the cipher concept too, of course, is like, that's why you have a cipher limit, is because otherwise you'll hoard them to that perfect use time. And I'm like, yeah, but that perfect use time might come up too far away for you to care. So
exactly. Well, and that's what I was saying. Like, we were talking about Excalibur. It's pretty cool how they got Excalibur set up. If you roll a 1 on a 1d100, the sword will embed itself in the nearest boulder and will not come free except for the hand of its maker or the rightful ruler of that recursion. So, stuff like that. So it's not necessarily gone. It just isn't working for you anymore for now.
Yeah.
Unless you're the rightful ruler.
All right.
So. Well,
Yeah.
any more questions? Answers?
Yeah. I think we should probably, just as we're getting, just saw that we just hit 9, so we should probably start heading toward the pasture.
Heading towards the wrap up. Okay.
Unless we want to go around and say anything else
Yeah.
about Cypher System Fantasy.
Yeah, one thing that we're looking at doing soon is a big Planescape game. We're thinking about, all right, we're going to use the strange rules for going into the other planes. So that you're like, all right, you get to change an aspect of yourself, and so like switching planes sort of changes things. So sort of keeping both themes together. So, but trying to do Cypher Planescape would be pretty interesting, I think.
Nice.
So, allow you to be that floating head from the Torment games. Or
Nice.
Yeah.
The only big thing that I got coming up, and it's I'll keep talking about it probably all this year, all of 2019, but it probably won't come, actually start itself until like early 2020. But the 4 new settings that are coming out for Cypher System, I actually have written out a framework to run a complete campaign, a year-long campaign that takes place in each setting, but is fully connected.
Ooh, that's ambitious.
It is.
That's ambitious, but
I think I can do it.
I don't know that I know enough about each setting yet to see. All right, what's this? I'm really interested in Bruce's take on a modern space, on a gritty space setting. So that's the one I've been eyeing since it was announced. So.
I'm interested in, like, the only one that wasn't overly exciting for me was the fairy tale one, but it's growing on me. The idea of it's growing on me.
I've been so immersed into or getting exposed to so much of the modern kind of fairy tale situations with heck, the Telltale game Wolf Among Us was, I think, the first thing that I was like, oh wow, this Fable thing exists. This is pretty cool. Now there's a new show, Tell Me a Story. That's what
right. That's why it's growing.
Grimm was pretty cool too. Like Grimm was really interesting. I loved that take on that. So I was like, all right, doing a modern fairy tales in a modern world, I think, is a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's growing on me. It's been growing
on you. Yeah.
But I was actually pretty excited about the vampire one, because it's like the vampires are not the apex predators. There's something else, and it's called Stay Alive. You're a vampire, but you're not the top of the food chain. There's something that worries you. So I'm really kind of interested to see what that's all about.
Nice.
I don't know. I kind of want to, do my version of The Walking Dead. So, too. So that was another one that looked pretty cool. So, they're zombie type of game, or horror elements that they've got with that new book they're coming out with too. So,
what do you think, Jim? Anything on your horizons?
As far as as far as things that are coming out, I mean, as far as I am interested in seeing the fairy tale supplement. I haven't actually had as much interaction with the modern fairy tale TV shows or what have you, but it is a thing I'm interested in.
In comic books, it's not just TV shows.
This is true. This is true. I haven't had as much interaction with those either, unfortunately. There's just only so much time. It's on my list of stuff to check out. Haven't gotten to it yet. But it is something I want to kind of see how it gets handled, because especially, I really like things that take sort of, and this is I guess the cry, this can often be called the cry of goths everywhere, perhaps. The Brothers Grimm approach to things is something that often I cannot get enough of. So I definitely want to see how that is approached. So I think that would be really cool.
Nice.
As far as those things go. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to that. And just want to see kind of what folks are doing with things just as they go.
All right. All right. Does anybody have any things of interest that they'd want to bring up before we close out the session? Anything that you not Cypher related that you're kind of looking at, taking part in, or what have you?
I had one thing that I wanted to that I just wanted to mention. There is a game that was kickstarted not too horribly long ago called Dialect. I got the opportunity to play it not too long ago because I actually did. I had pledged on the Kickstarter, and I have a copy. But it's one of those games that it's hard to know if who to ask, because it is specifically about language, but it's about the displacement of language, and it's really about the culture also that the language is a part of. And so for language geeks, it's awesome, but I think it's just awesome in general because we got to play as these robots who were the last things left on Earth after all life had gone, we ended up getting displaced by something from beyond the stars that started showing up. And it showed how the language changed and started dying, and it was very tragic, and it was glorious. Dialect is a game I highly encourage folks to go and check out. It's by Thorny Games. It is a beautiful game too. That comes in a nice hardbound book, little hardbound book you can read through, and has a bunch of scenarios for it. But my description does not do it justice, because yes, you construct the language, but then you also construct what's going on with the culture and see what happens as things start falling apart. And it's a beautiful tragedy, basically. So, but nice. It also it's very instructive as well. So I really cannot recommend it enough.
Okay. Only thing for me, once again, kind of like Jim, it's been out there for a little while now. I played the original game at its inception, and that's Torg. I don't care what anybody tells you. Everybody should learn Torg. Torg is actually, and I've said this on a number of occasions. I may have to do a whole video on it or something, but Torg is literally the groundwork, the foundation for so many things that we're looking at today. I don't know if, other creators played it or saw it or it's just an organic progression. But a lot of the things that are built into the Torg as a system, because it is relatively crunchy, don't get me wrong, but they're the same kind of conventions that we're using in a lot of modern games. Just like a lot of the aspects like here in Cypher System, where you have the ability, you can expend effort, and you can expend edge to reduce the effort of a cost or something. Torg does it with the drama deck. The drama deck literally that's what it is. The drama deck sets up initiative. The drama deck sets up benefits and detriments, but it builds it into the role play, and various methods. And then now, with the new version, they've added Cosm cards, which, and if for anybody who doesn't know it, Torg is called Torg the Possibility Wars, the original game. And basically these other realities overlaid onto ours. So North America got hit with a prehistoric realm, and England got hit with a magical realm, and Japan and China got hit with a quote unquote semi-futuristic. It's only about
Mecha
50. What'd you say?
Mecha realm?
Yeah, it was more like I said, it wasn't far-flung future. So they couldn't even tell what's going on. But what happens is these places also bring what they call the rules of that reality. So, like, if you were here in the United States and parts of the United States that are hit, and you try to take a gun into the prehistoric realm, the rules of that reality say, guess what? Guns weren't invented yet. They don't exist. So that gun might just turn into its component parts and fall apart. But you're a storm knight, So what you can do, you can weather the storm, and you carry your reality with you. So your gun might work, but so it's just great. It's good stuff.
Cool. That's very interesting because I've not actually looked into Torg before, but that's been around since like the early '90s, yeah.
The original came out, yeah.
And so it's interesting because it's what you're talking about is reminding me. It's shades of both Amber and The Strange. So it's very interesting to
trust me. It has. Like I said, I don't know if these guys had touched on it or whatever, but I know Amber was probably a very big influence on the creators of Torg.
Mm.
Yeah. And for you, those of you out there, Torg actually originally stood for the other role-playing game.
Nice.
So, but it's good stuff, and I'm pretty excited about it. They just kickstarted the Nile Empire. Each realm has is going to actually have its own book. Where you can flesh it out. So that means you could literally play in one realm, or you could jet set into other realms. And there's just so much stuff. It's huge. It's massive. It's beautiful.
Cool. Well, it sounds really interesting. So, but I think it was originally West End, right?
West End Games originally. Yep.
Yeah.
Bill Slavic, or however you pronounce his name.
Yeah. I think that's might be not right. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's Ulysses Spiel now. Ulysses Spiel has it now, and like I said, I've got the core box. I've got the Living Land, which is the one that's overlaid on the United States, and now the Nile Empire is just done. So I'm not sure which one is coming next. But there's basically 7 realms. There's Orash, which is the horror realm. It's all over Indonesia and stuff like that. And I'm literally, it's Call of Cthulhu horror, exactly. So then they've got techno demons in Russia.
Oh, nice. I gotta take a look at this thing.
Trust me, awesome. It's awesome.
I am all about techno demons, sir.
All right, I'll stop talking now.
No, you're fine. But I guess we should wrap it up. So Dean, thank you very much for joining us on this episode. Where can everybody find you?
On Facebook, you can find me at do a search for AlphaDean. On Discord, you can do a search for AlphaDean or AD. On Twitter, you can find me at AlphaDean. You can always find me on the Cypher Unlimited page, and on YouTube, you can find me at AlphaDean.
It's good to keep that branding in one line. So that's good.
I made it easy for everybody. Just look for AlphaDean, and 99% of the time, you're going to find the right one. So
great, cool. All right. What about you, Jim? Where can people find you?
All right. Well,
other than here.
Well, yeah. Well, obviously here, if you're watching live, this is my channel. I am OtherDoc on both Twitch and Twitter. That's OTHERDOC. On Fridays, I'm playing through Torment, Tides of Numenera. I've started wandering through the outer areas of Sagus Cliffs, and I'm starting to get a feeling for the cliques and the politics of the place. It's getting very interesting. On Saturday mornings, I play We Happy Few, and then I'm doing RPGs. Not this weekend, but every other Saturday afternoon, we're playing in a campaign of The Cold Ruins of Last Life, which is a setting for Dungeon World, where we're all undead. Then on Sundays, I do one-shots of different games, as I believe I mentioned at the top of the episode. This month is World Building Month. This Sunday, we're playing Dawn of Worlds, where we're godlike beings drawing out a world on a map. Then for the rest of the month on Sundays, we'll be playing The Quiet Year, which is another map-drawing game that's more post-apocalyptic in theme and is about a community getting through a year of relative peace. We'll be playing a couple of games of that and a game of The Deep Forest, which is a variant on The Quiet Year that focuses on a community of monsters in the woods after the departure of human colonists. I'm very excited to dig into that. And slots filled up for that for this month. Slots filled up for this month really quickly this time. But when I get the announcements out for February and open signups for that month, there's a link down below on my Twitch page, or you can go to my website at jimyesthatjim.com, where I have links to that and to my various other audio and writing projects.
All right. You should try to fit in a game of Microscope in that world building month. And just,
I thought about it. I'm going to do more world building months in the future, though, so I think that's when that'll happen.
What was that, Dave?
And one last, I don't know if I said it, but of course, look for us all on Discord, Cypher Unlimited Discord channel. And we do one-shots consistently all the time. Yeah. Matter of fact, my gaming, I'm going to play a game very shortly on the Discord server. So you can always hop over there, people, and looking for a group. We've got a plethora of talented GMs who run, everything. We even recreate old movies from the 70s. We've played The Warriors. We've played The Mist. We've played The Thing. We've played, you name it, we've played it. I mean, Thundercats have been run. Silverhawks have been run. Scooby-Doo has been run. And this is all using the Cypher system, people. Cypher is your best friend.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it's a great service. I have not been on there as nearly as much as I want to, just because life, having a exchange student, a kid, a family, a job, doesn't get enough time for gaming. But I hope to run something through there soon.
How old is your son?
He is just turned 7, so
time to get him gaming. That's all.
Yeah, time to get him. We've been doing some no thank you evil. So
all right, yes.
Already, so. But anyway, I am Andrew. You can find me at my20sidedlife.com. Eventually, when I get that back up and running, you can find me on Twitter at my20sidedlife. And yeah, you could probably find me on some other social medias. The dying ones of Google Plus, or the up and coming ones of MeWe, or something like that. Not quite sure yet. Anyway, yes, it's been fun. Awesome. All right. Well, you have made it to the end of another wonderful episode of the CypherCaster. You can email us at info@cyphercaster.net. You can follow us on Twitter at CypherCastNet. We're off on Twitch the first Thursday of every month here at twitch.tv/otherdoc. And you can also find the VODs here at twitch.tv/otherdoc of any of our previous episodes. The podcast is available on the CypherCast Network blog, iTunes, and wherever else you find your podcast, like Google Play. I think we're on Stitcher. I think we're on everything else. So, all right. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next month.
Farewell.
Yes. Thank you, Dean, once again for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's been a great, lively discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Huzzah!